Ah, detective. You're awake. I wouldn't try to move if I were you. The sedatives are still working their way out of your system, and you are securely restrained to your chair. I would advise you to relax as best you can. Dinner is almost ready, and you must be starving. You've been unconscious for quite some time. Where are you? You are seated as the guest of honor at my dining table, of course. We're in my home. Well, my summer home to be specific. Take a look out that window, overlooking the lake and the woods beyond. The stars like diamonds upon a blanket of black velvet. Nobody around for miles. So I would advise that you not bother trying to escape. It's at least 2 hours by car to the nearest house, and you can trust that I've taken all necessary precautions to ensure that you're not going anywhere. Am I going to kill you? Oh, most assuredly. But I have no intention of rushing this. After all we've been through, detective, I want to relish these final weeks of yours, if not months, depending upon your behavior. But given your pattern of behavior and the series of events this past year, you foolishly making some rather unethical decisions, causing you to lose your badge and the respect of your colleagues, and then recklessly tracking me down to my private estate in the hopes of confronting me and redeeming your name. I doubt that I'll be able to stomach your rudeness for much longer, but I'm open to being pleasantly surprised. You made such a mess of things, and your recklessness resulted in your capture. A pike might be a fearsome fish in its own regard, but a shark is a much more deadly hunter indeed. And you, detective, are in waters far deeper and darker than you realize. I do not care to be the object of your obsession, the prey that you so passionately pursued, the lovely young doctor that you insisted was this new deadly serial killer that stalked the streets of London, harvesting organs and chopping off limbs left and right, mostly the important ones. I believe you thought that I was selling them on the black market, but of course, I am far more refined than some back-alley dealer. I'm a woman of standards, detective, and while your hunch was correct, the truth was far more terrible than you had imagined. Though the level of devotion to capturing me was admirable, I do like to be admired. Though the papers failed to do me justice, don't you think? Sadly, your journey to unveil the true identity of the London Butcher ends here, in the elegant halls of my summer house. A rather masculine nickname, is it not? The London Butcher. Evocative of imagery of some savage brute wielding a cleaver, lumbering down the alleys of East London like some uncouth barbarian. I think it was The Sun who came up with that title. Ghastly tabloid, but it only served me better in the long run. The press really needs to think of some more creative titles. Perhaps I'll suggest some in an anonymous letter. Then again, that's exactly what you want, isn't it? A single cell of skin, or an eyelash, or even half a fingerprint, one tiny fragment of me, left on a letter by accident, would absolutely endanger me and possibly lead to my capture. And I have no intention of allowing that to happen. I would offer you some wine, of course, but I think you'd appreciate it more once the chemicals have left your body and your senses are fully aware once more. According to my calculations, that should be relatively soon. I have put a lot of effort into making tonight so special, and I would hate to spoil it with impatience. Ah, please excuse me. I believe the roast needs to be taken out of the oven. Ah, detective. Good to see the last of the sedative is worn off. I don't want you to miss a moment of this. I present to you tonight's feast. New potatoes roasted with rosemary and thyme, seared asparagus, and farro salad with cherries and walnuts. And for the pièce de résistance, roast leg of detective with a pomegranate and honey glaze. Phantom limb syndrome is a curious thing, isn't it? I was wondering if you would realize your missing legs before I had the chance to make this grand gesture. Luckily for me, you didn't. But do not fret. I made sure you were comfortable in your chair, with your napkin laid in your lap, so there's not a single thing to worry about. Your only task tonight is to enjoy my cooking. Where's your other leg? Oh, it's in the pantry. I was thinking of curing it, and maybe making pancetta or prosciutto, but that can wait. I think tonight's dinner will go perfectly with a bottle of this especially lovely Pinot Noir. Oh, come now, detective, there's no need to start name-calling. I put so much effort into tonight for you to taste the fruit of your labors after hunting me for months. So throwing around words like psychopath or sadist are just spoiling the mood. Would you care to carve? I did leave one arm free after all. On second thought, it might be best if I took care of that. Don't want you throwing any knives at me. But of course, even if you did cut through your restraints, it's not like you could get very far. I've had some thoughts about what would complement your meat the best. Not just the muscles, but the organs too. And from the way you're glaring at me, I rather like the idea of making an after-dinner martini, with one of your eyes as the olive, letting all those ugly thoughts stew away in some very expensive gin, with a twist of lemon, of course. I've had plenty of time to think about how to prepare you, top to bottom, and what would bring you the most suffering. What would be the bare minimum to keep you alive? But I might be inclined to show mercy, so long as you behave yourself. That's better. Smells good, doesn't it? While you were recovering from surgery, I was busy researching recipes, and I must say, perfection. Oh, come now, detective. You must surely be a little curious. And you are quite famished after all. Now is not the time to be picky. All the food we will enjoy together in the coming weeks will have some piece of you. A piece of you that has been transcended by my culinary expertise. You should at least try some. Well, if you won't do it of your own volition, eat, or I will take this knife and puncture your spinal cord. Right here. and you will not be able to move a single muscle from your jaw to the tips of your new stumpy appendages. You will be able to taste, hear, and witness my art in motion, but you will not be able to move a single finger or speak a word. Now, are you going to behave yourself and eat the meal that I spent so long preparing in your honor? Or are you going to cause a fuss? That's what I thought. Now, eat. Good. Be sure to try the wine. It works beautifully with the tartness of the pomegranates. As much as you try to deny it, there's a part of you that was just dying to know what this experience is like. To dine on the most forbidden of fruits. But it's only forbidden if one considers themselves an equal to the source of the meat set before them. And we now know who is the hunter and who is the prey, don't we, detective? Do you know one of my favorite quotes? I'm sure you must, as you spent so long obsessing over me. But I'll tell you my absolute favorite. Sic gaudiamus allos subjectitus nunc. We gladly feast on those who would subdue us. There was a time when you thought to subdue me, detective. Lock me up like a prize specimen of curious appetites, like a rare, beautiful beast submerged in formaldehyde for onlookers to gawk at in disgust and fascination. Scholars and psychology students attempting to dissect my mind in pursuit of grand accolades, to have their name put in lofty volumes of medical academia. They would have undoubtedly published a book on me, called me something more befitting of my true essence. The Dark Doctor seems a bit, plain. Maybe something like, the connoisseur Cannibal. I'll have to think about it. The hospital will wonder where I've gone. Do you really think so little of me, detective? After being harassed by the police for so long as part of your investigation, I took a sabbatical. Some much-needed time for myself to recover mentally after being stalked by a certain detective who was certain that I was the killer they sought. I suppose I should thank you, detective, for not only being the perfect reason for my little holiday from the big city, but for assisting with the replenishing of my pantry. I look forward to tasting more of you. Stop behaving like a child. That was some of my best bone china. But steady your breathing. You can't afford to lose your temper like that anymore. It hurts, doesn't it? That tightness in your chest, that twisted, uncomfortable feeling in your gut. Oh, and your stitches have torn. You're bleeding through your shirt. Yes, while you were unconscious and I had finished removing your legs, I took some additional steps to harvest some organs that you won't be needing anymore. That's where that scar is from. I sliced you open from collarbone to belly, rummaged around a little, and selected some very choice cuts. Oh, don't fret, detective. You're still alive, aren't you? I just took one of your kidneys and one of your lungs, and I stuffed some lemons, garlic, and rosemary in that gaping open cavity left behind, to help marinate you, of course. Like a strange stuffed chicken, still squawking and running around with its head cut off. Well, your legs cut off. But that is why it's important to not exert yourself. You only have one lung left, enough to stay alive, but not enough to get very far if you attempted to escape me. Now, shall I prepare another plate of this beautiful roast? Or are you just going to sit there stoically? Oh, very well. If you're not going to eat this beautifully prepared feast tonight, then at least enjoy the wine and make conversation with me. We'll be spending quite some time together, so you'd better get used to it. Though, given your rudeness tonight, I think I will be making that martini after all. Something to enjoy before dessert. A personal favourite of mine, blood chocolate pudding. I couldn't let anything go to waste when I had you on my operating table after all. I can't wait to hear what you think of it. But I propose a toast to London's finest detective, ruthless, passionate, and utterly delicious. Cheers.